Let's do this. Let's do predictions. So we have, why is there only, is week 1 shorter then? Does week 1 not, am I lit right now? Why does week 1 not have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? So everybody plays once on week 1, everybody plays twice in the other weeks, I guess? Alright, then I guess it's going to be a short week 1. So there's games on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday this year. Friday is going to be the Challenger Circuit this year. So that's why there's no games on Friday. Thursday, SPL. Friday, Challenger Circuit. Saturday, Sunday, SPL. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, probably Xbox stuff, I'd imagine. But I don't actually know. I don't know too much about the Xbox scene. So it looks like we have a short week here for week 1 SPL. It's just this Saturday and Sunday, which I guess makes sense considering this is Thursday right now. So we've got Europe up first on Saturday. I think it's always going to be Europe on Saturday and NA on Sunday. And then Thursday is both EU and NA, I believe. If we look at the chart, Saturday, yeah. So Saturday will always be EU, Sunday will always be NA, Thursday will be probably half and half, I imagine. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yep, perfect. We're figuring it out all together. We're doing it live. So first up, we have Dignitas versus Cyclone. CycloneGG having worked themselves back into the SPL, basically the same roster. Dignitas not at all the same roster. This is their entire team got kicked. And they actually made it into the SPL, I believe, again. The Shadow Nightmares team. But this is actually Variety's team, which is now Team Dignitas because they got picked up. Start of the season's always super complicated. But they're actually, it was actually probably a smart move, honestly, on Dignitas. Like, you know, it's always kind of lame kicking your whole team to get a new roster, but like, as a whole, this roster is probably going to be the best Dignitas team that we've ever seen out of Europe. And I've got Dignitas taking this 2-0. They're looking to be a very strong roster this year out of Europe. Probably, if I had to make a safe guess, the second best team in Europe this year would be my immediate guess. Number 1, obviously, being Energy. And number 3 probably being Obey, since Obey lost a lot of their roster, including Variety, who is now Team Dig. So, next up we have Valence Squad and Sanguine. I have no idea who Valence Squad is. Let me see who the other team is. Elevate and Norvis Orsa. Okay, so Norvis Orsa is Shadow Nightmares team. Who's Valence Squad? Is that, did they get picked up? Somebody in chat will know. Sanguine lost a lot of their roster to various other teams. I think they only have 2 remaining. Oh, Valence Squad is Lobster's team. Okay, so this is Lobster, Funballer, and that gang. That's who I was missing. Old Orbit, but not really Old Orbit because Kivo, Fred, and Trix Tank are on Team Dignitas now. But they still have a solid roster. In fact, I believe they took Cheerio from Sanguine. Man, we're really digging right now to get back into our history of European Smite. But Valence should have this at 2-0. They're going to be a strong squad as well. Your top 4 teams this year from Europe are most likely going to be Dig, Valence Squad, Energy, and Orbay. I imagine those are going to be your top 4. The variance within that top 4, we're going to find out. But if you want to, like, quick know, like, who you should be voting for, just, like, right off the bat, you know, Dig, VAC, Energy, and Obey are probably safe bets if they're not, you know, against each other. Next up, we have Elevate and Norvis Orsa. Both of these teams fighting their way back into the SPL, actually. Norvis Orsa, like we said, Shadow Nightmares team, which was the previous Dignitas roster, which lost their spot, which then got to fight for their spot in the relegation or whatever it's called. Elevate, still probably going to be an okay team. Norvis Orsa, probably going to be an okay team. As far as I'm concerned, week 1 here, this one's just tossed. This one's a coin toss into the air. So I'm going to throw it right down the middle with a split. But that match is a coin toss. As far as I can see. Energy versus Obey. Energy completely unchanged. Obey's roster changing around a bit. Still have Ataraxia and Pretty Prime, the two basically core members of Obey. But they're against Energy, of course, the 2-time reigning world champions, and quite literally the best team that has ever been in Smite. They are the most winningest team of Smite that there's ever been. You'd be amiss to ever vote against Energy until proven otherwise. Maybe Season 4 isn't their season. But Season 3 was certainly their season, considering they didn't drop a single LAN. So, they haven't lost a LAN since since November 2015. It's been a long time. So, there you go. ALG versus In Memory of Gabe. This should be a pretty interesting set. Team Allegiance largely unchanged from their Worlds roster. Only thing different is MLC Stealth is no longer on the team, and they picked up Matt Yankee, previous mid laner for Soar. In Memory of Gabe is Snoopy and Ionic, basically, and crew coming back into the SPL. Had a very dominant performance throughout the relegation series. By far the strongest team in that relegation series. Didn't seem to have too much trouble. But it'll be interesting to see how this will be, the new upcoming team versus basically the same roster that went to Worlds for Allegiance. So it'll be interesting to see who transferred to Season 4 better. Allegiance obviously has the synergy aspect going for them, although they did have a lot of roster changes last year, so that roster hadn't been together that long before Worlds. In fact, almost basically at all. In Memory of Gabe has already played quite a few games on Season 4 since they had to go through relegations. And I'll throw this one as a split between those two teams. Flashpoint and Luminosity. Wow, Flashpoint. Wow, what a cool team. I'd vote for them. Cool beans. But actuality here, we have Flashpoint, an entire team of people formed that have not played together before. Shadowq, Mirage, Xenotronics, Aquarius, and this guy. On the other side, we have Luminosity, almost completely unchanged from Worlds, except for their mid laner, Xenotronics, who is now on Flashpoint, has been exchanged out for Baskin, previous solo laner for Soar, is now mid laner for Luminosity. Luminosity was the best performing North American team at Worlds. Almost beat Energy in the semifinals. Once again, fell 1 game short. The Barra, Jeff Hindla, 1 game short. Again, just like C9 was in the previous season, Season 2, against Energy in the semifinals. But they were the strongest North American team competing at Worlds. They've had quite a large time to practice. This will be interesting to see how both of these teams are transitioning into Season 4, as obviously it's very different, and so some teams are going to hit it harder than others. And I've got this way going split. Enemy and Noble both made it through the relegations phase of North America, along with In Memory of Gabe. In Memory of Gabe being the solid first place out of that. Enemy and Noble. Enemy getting second out of relegations. Noble barely made it back into the SPL. They actually had to go through tiebreakers in order to make it to this point. Their most recent pickup is MLC Stealth, is now the mid laner for Noble. This team is run by Chapo. Enemy Esports, on the other hand, still Pain Deviande and Chaos, as well as some new players. They played with Mr. Makey as their solo laner during relegations, but I don't think he's their actual solo laner. I think their solo laner couldn't make relegations. So it'll be interesting to see who comes out of that as their solo lane. But overall, both of these teams should be pretty close. I think a lot of these North American matchups are actually incredibly close in terms of just the skills of the team going against each other. And I've got this going the way of Split. It's going to be nuts, dude. It's going to be nuts. And finally, we have Eager versus Soar. Eager completely unchanged from North America. They were the second best performing team from North America at Worlds. They lost over in the other side of the semifinals to Obey. And then we have Soar, who is now Jigs and Gang. Basically, the entirety of Soar, except for Jigs and Andy left, except for Andy is no longer the jungler. Andister is the mid laner, and they picked up Homie G, or whatever his name is. Homie something. Homie Faye? Homie Faye. Homie G? Homie B Wizzy as their jungler. You guys know who I'm talking about. Eager obviously has the team synergy aspect because they're completely unchanged. Soar looking to mix things up. Taking Andy out of the jungle into the mid lane. Was it the way to go? I don't know. Andy has historically always been a top 3 jungler in North America. Often a top 3 jungle in the entire world. Quite a few times spending splits at the best jungler in the world. So it'll be interesting to see how that transition goes. But I think we're going to have ourselves another barn burner, and I'm going to throw this the way of Split, guys. I think the European games are going to be a lot more lopsided week 1, just the way that it worked out. So we have our final week 1 splits, that being Dignitas over Cyclone, VAC over Sanguine, Elevate, and Norvis Orsa split. Energy 2-0 over Obey for Europe. And then we have all splits coming out of North America. All of these games should be incredibly close. All of these teams looking to be around the same tier as their competitors. But it should be nuts, man. It should be nuts. There should be some really good games. Those should be some really good games. Yes, they should. It's the final countdown. Ba-da-ba-boo. Ba-da-ba-ba-boo. Ba-da-ba-boo. The final countdown.